Good day, everyone. I'm Nicanor Julio Gamboa with Mr. Gengia and Ms. Yadaw. Our topic that we will be discussing is the Week 11 General Provisions on Contract Consent from Articles 1319 to 1337. We will discuss how consent is formed through offer and acceptance, who can give consent, and the factors that may affect it. Okay, before we start, let me walk you to our table of content for today's report on consent in contract. First, we have the Article 1319 to 1324 on offer and acceptance, where we will learn how contracts are formed through a definite offer and an absolute acceptance. Second, we will cover Article 1325 to 1326 on advertisement and invitations to offer, which explains why business ads and calls for bidders are generally not considered a binding offers. And third, we will move to Article 1327 to 1329 on capacity to give consent, identifying who can and who cannot give a valid consent in contracts. And lastly, we will discuss Article 1330 to 1337 on basis of consent. This focus on deflects like mistakes, fraud, violence, intimidations, and undue influence that can make a contract voidable. This will be the flow of our discussion for today. And now let's start with Article 1319. Article 1319 says that consent is the meeting of the offer and acceptance upon the thing and the cost of the contract. It said that the offer must be certain and the acceptance should be absolute. If the acceptance qualified, it becomes a counter offer. So basically it means that consent is basically the agreement of the both parties or meeting of minds, and then the offer must be definite and serious. And the acceptance must exactly match it. For example, if Anna offers to sell her car for 200,000 pesos and Ben agrees to that offer, then the consent is valid. But if Ben says that he will not pay 200,000 pesos, instead he's willing to give a 160,000 pesos, then that is a counter offer. And now, let's go with Article 1320. Article 1320 tells us that acceptance may be expressed or implied. An express acceptance is clear and direct. It may be oral or written, like saying I accept or signing a contract. On the other hand, an implied acceptance is shown through actions or conduct that clearly indicate agreement to the offer. But however, silence does not mean you accept the contract, or it doesn't mean acceptance happened unless the law, business, or previous dealings between the parties provide otherwise. For example, if X offers 3,000 pesos to repair his refrigerator and Y actually repairs it, then that is an implied contract or implied acceptance because Y shows that he agreed with the agreement. But if Y just stays silent and does nothing, that cannot be considered an acceptance. Article 1321. Article 1321 states that the person that is making the offers has the right to set the time, place, and manner of acceptance. This means that the offeree must comply with these conditions. Otherwise, the acceptance will not be valid. It will be treated as a counter-offer instead. For example, R tells E to accept in person on January 15 at exactly 5 p.m. in his office. If E accepts but not at the time or place that is required by Mr. R or R, then there is no valid acceptance unless R still agrees. In this way, the law respects the right of the offeror to control how and when the acceptance shall be made. And now, Article 1322. Article 1322 explains that if the offer is made to an agent, the acceptance is considered a valid contract. But once it is communicated, but that is only considered valid if it's already communicated to the agent. This is because in law, the agent is treated as an extension of the offeror. So whatever is communicated to the authorized agent is the same as communicating directly to the principal or to the offeror. For example, if Anna mistakes an offer, I mean, makes an offer through her agent, and Ben tells the agent that he accepts, then that acceptance already binds Anna, even if she has not yet heard it directly to the offerer. And now let's go with Article 1323. Article 1323 says that an offer becomes ineffective if either party dies, becomes insane, insolvent, or under civil interdiction. The, the offer will become ineffective if before the acceptance happened. So meaning, at the time of acceptance, both parties must be alive and legally capable. Also, an offer may become ineffective if its conditions are not followed. For example, if the time has expired, that one, and or the contract or the subject matter was destroyed. For example, Anna offers to sell her land, but she dies before Ben was able to accept the offer. Since Anna dies before Ben able to accept the offer, then there will be no contracts. Now let's go with Article 1324. Article 1324 explains the option of the contracts. The offerer may still withdraw an offer at any time before acceptance, even if the period is already given, unless the offerer involves a money, meaning that the offer can't or cannot withdraw an offer if the money is already involved or an option. It's just that the money is like a payment given to keep the offer open for a certain time. So without it or without the money, the offer can still withdraw. But if there's already a money involved on an option of the money, the offer is bound not to withdraw or it cannot be withdrawn. For example, X offers to build Y's house for 1 million pesos and gives Y 10 days to decide. If Y pays option money or already pays the money, X cannot withdraw it within 10 days. But without an money, X may still withdraw anytime before the acceptance or before the contract happened.
So the next article is Article 1325. It says here, unless it appears otherwise, business advertisement of things for sale are not definite offer, but merely invitation to make an offer. So business advertisement of things for sale may or may not constitute a definite offer. They are merely invitation to the readers to make an offer to the seller. However, if the advertisement is complete in details necessary in a contract, it may consider as a definite offer. So this is crucial distinction in contract law because the acceptance of definite offer perfects a contract, while an invitation to make an offer requires the advertiser to accept new offer from another interested customer. So, for example, for sale, 200 square meters lot at Green Plains Village, Quezon City for 600,000. So, this example is considered as not definite offer because it is not complete in detail. So, this advertisement is just an invitation for people to make an offer to the seller. So, if the offers are made the same way, the seller may or may not be accepted the offer, and because this is just an invitation. So, question: when can a business advertisement of this is a definite offer? So, the answer to that is the advertisement of things may consider a definite offer if the advertisement is complete in all details. So, for example, another example. So, for sale, 100 square meters, lot with a brand new bungalow house at Block 3, Lot 4, Sampaguita Street, Santa Cruz, Laguna for 5 million. So, this example is considered as definite offer because it has all the complete details in the contract. So the next article is 1326. In this article, advertisement for bidders are simply invitations to make proposal, and the advertisers is not bound to accept the highest or lowest bidder unless the contrary appears. So in this article, it explains that the advertisement for bidding are not actual offers but only invitations for people to submit their proposal. This means that the advertiser is not automatically required to accept the highest or lowest bid, but they have the freedom to choose which bid to accept or even reject all of them. So this article explains that advertisers openly accept any offer, but when someone advertises for bids, they are not yet promising to enter into a contract with someone. It is likely they are asking people like, if you want, here are the conditions, and send me your offers. So for example, a bidding for laptop, client one offered 20K and client two offered 18K. But not because the client one offered higher than client two, he will automatically accepted by the advertisers. The advertisers has the complete freedom to choose which bid to accept. So this article prevents misunderstanding. Like when someone submitting the highest bid, that person might expect that the offer is automatically accepted by the seller. But in Article 1326, the seller has the right to choose what offer to accept. The next article is Article 1327. This article shows that the person who legally cannot agree or give consent to a contract. So there are three people mentioned that cannot legally agree or give consent. Number one, an emancipated minors. Two, insane or demented persons. Three, deaf and mutes. So the reason is that the consent is one of the essential elements of a valid contract, and it must come from someone who truly or fully understand of what they are agreeing to. So this article protects people who are vulnerable from being bound by agreements that they didn't fully understand. So, for an example, a minor enters into a contract of buying a laptop worth 20,000 on installment. But since that person is still a minor, then he does not have the legal capacity to consent. Next, when a person is legally declared insane, he signs a contract selling his land to someone. But because that person cannot fully understand what he's doing, then the contract is voidable. Last example is when a person who is deaf or mute cannot read or write. When someone convinced that person to sign a loan agreement, since that person has no way of truly understanding or expressing valid consent, then the contract is voidable or may even be unenforceable. So the consent in contract law means fully understanding and agreeing to the terms freely. Since minors are presumed to not have enough maturity or judgment, and insane person or demented persons are lack mental capability or capacity, and the deaf and mutes without writing skills have no means properly express consent. So in short, this Article 1327 protects people who lack the capacity to safeguard themselves from being taken advantage of. The next article is Article 1328. Contracts entered into during a lucid intervals are valid. Contracts agreed to in a state of drunkenness or during hypnotic spells are voidable. So, lucid interval means a temporary period of sanity in a person who is usually insane or mentally ill. Drunkenness and hypnotic spells weakens a person's ability to give proper consent. So, this article provides rules about capacity and mental conditions affecting consent in contracts. So this article emphasizes that true consent must be intelligent and voluntary. So for an example, if an insane person happens to be in a lucid interval, means they can fully understand their actions. So the law recognized the contracts they enter into as valid because at that moment they had the capacity to give consent to others. However, when a person enters into a contract while in a state of drunkenness or under a hypnotic spells, their reasoning and free will are impaired. So the law classifies such contract as voidable. So another example, if a person who usually suffers from mentally illness sells her phone during a lucid moment when she fully understands the deal, then the contract is valid. But if a person while very drunk agrees to sell his car cheaply, the contracts can be annulled later. So in short, this article prevents people from being taken advantage of when their mental states or free will is impaired. Article 1329. The incapacity declared in Article 1327 is subject to the modifications determined by law and is understood to be without prejudice to special disqualification established in the law. So, in Article 1327, it enumerates a certain persons who by default cannot give consent to a contract. These are people who are incapacitated for legal consent. But in Article 1329, it says that this incapacity from Article 1327 is not absolute in every case. It may be modified by other law. So when we say incapacity, it refers to people who are lack the legal ability to give valid consent. And when we say modification by law, it simply means that even if the civil code declares someone's incapable, other laws may provide situations where that person is allowed to contract validly. So, for example, a person who is 17 years old. So, normally, as a minor, that person cannot enter into a valid contract on her own because that person is considered incapacitated under Article 1327. However, the labor code allows minors who are at least 15 years old to work under certain conditions, like with parental consent. Because of this law, that person is allowed to sign an employment contract. This means that while some people are generally considered incapable of contracting, the law may allow exceptions or it may impose additional restrictions on otherwise capable persons. So in short, Article 1329 clarifies that capacity to contract is not absolute and can be either expanded or restricted by specific legal provision. The next article is Article 1330. A contract where consent is given through mistakes, violence, intimidations, undue influence, or fraud is voidable. Article 1330 deals with defective consent in contracts. Consent must be given freely and properly. If it is given because of any mistakes or threats, then the contract is voidable. So this article is important because it ensures fairness in contracts. People should not be bound by agreements they didn't freely agree to. So for an example, if a person consent was given because of mistakes or threats, then that contract is voidable. Because this article states that that contract is voidable if consent is given through mistakes or threats. So it also says in this article, consent is intelligent when the party has the legal capacity to understand the agreement, free and voluntary when given without force or threats. So this article helps people by protecting their freedom of choice in contracts and giving them a legally remedy when their consent is defective. If someone is tricked by fraud, forced by threats, or pressured by undue influence, the law allows them to annul the contract instead of being unfairly bound to it.
Article 1331. Mistake in consent. A contract may be cancelled if the mistake is about the thing itself or an important condition for the agreement. Mistake about person's identity or qualification counts only if it was the main reason for the deal. A simple computation error does not cancel the contract, it is just corrected. If the mistake is essential and affects the contract nature, it may be allowed. For example, a land is sold as 567 square meters for 235,305 pesos. But it turns out to be only 457 square meters. This major mistake let the buyers cancel the contract, meaning to say that mistake is a wrong belief in something important to the contract. Small numbers error are corrected, but big mistakes that affect the agreement purpose can cancel it. Article 1332. When one party cannot read or understand. If one party in a contract cannot read or does not understand the language used, the person who is enforcing the contract must prove that the terms were fully explained before consent is valid. For example, a farmer who cannot read signs a deed of sale, the buyer must show that the contents were clearly explained, meaning to say, this protects people who cannot read or understand the language. The law assumes they might not know what they agreed to, so the other party must prove it was explained. Article 1333. Effect of mistake not known to the other party. If only one party made a mistake and the other did not know about it, the contract is still valid. For example, a seller thinks the land is 7 square meters, but the buyer never knew of this belief. The sale is still valid, meaning to say, a contract cannot be cancelled if the mistake was only in one person's mind, and the other party had no idea. Article 1334. Mutual error. If both parties are mistaken about the same important fact in the contract may be annulled. Example, both seller and buyer thought a horse was alive when sold, but it was already dead. The sale is voidable, meaning to say that when both sides are wrong about something essential, their consent is not sealed, so the contract can be cancelled. Article 1335. Violence, intimidation, and undue influence. Consent is invalid if obtained through, first, violence, using physical force, second, intimidation, using threats that cause fear, third, and last, undue influence with the use of unfair pressure that controls another's will. For example, a person is forced at a gunpoint to sign a gift of sale. Consent is not valid. Meaning to say, agreement must be free. If signed due to force, threat, or manipulation, the contract cannot be annulled. Article 1336. Violence or intimidation by a third person. If violence or intimidation comes from a third person, not a party to the contract, consent is still invalid. For example, a gangster forces a seller to sign a contract with the buyer. The contract is still voidable even if the buyer made no threats. Meaning to say, even if coercion is from someone else, the contract is not valid because the person's free will was affected. Article 1337. Undue influence. Undue influence happens when one party uses power, authority, or relationship to control the other and get unfair advantage. For example, an elderly man sells land for a cheaper price because his caregiver pressures him. Consent is invalid due to undue influence, meaning to say, the law protects people who agreed only because they were pressured by someone they trust or depend on.
Now, to check your understanding of today's discussion on consent in contracts, we will now have a short Q&A. We prepared some simple questions related to the articles that we discussed or explained, so feel free to answer and don't worry, this is just to review and reinforce the key points of our topic.
So, question number 1. What is option money under Article 1324? The answer is payment to keep the offer open for fixed period. Now let's proceed to question number 2. If a minor buys a medicine from a pharmacy, is the contract valid, void, or voidable? The answer, the contract is valid because the law considers medicine a necessary. Question number 3. Under Article 1323, when does an offer become ineffective? The answer is when both party dies, become insane, or insolvent before acceptance. So, question number 4. What happened to the contract when both parties are mistaken about the same important fact? The answer is the contract becomes voidable or unannulable. Question number 5. What does Article 1325 state about business advertisement? So the answer is they are not definite offer but mere invitations to make an offer. Question number 6. Under Article 1326, what is the legal effect of an advertisement for bidders? The answer, it is only an invitation for others to make offer, and the advertiser is not bound to accept any bids unless the ad says otherwise. Question 7. If one party cannot read or understand the language of the contract, what must the other party do? The answer, prove that the contract was fully explained. So last question, question number 8. What happens if both parties in a contract are incapacitated? The answer, the contract is unenforceable. So that's all for our question and answer.
Thank you for participating in our question and answer. Through your answer, we can see that the main points about consent in contracts are now clearer from offer and acceptance to capacity and even the vices of consent. With that, we'll now move on to our closing remarks to officially end our report. Thank you. And last, for closing remarks, a summary from Articles 1319 to Article 1337 emphasize that consent is not just about saying yes or no, it must be real, certain, and free from any defect. A contract is perfected only when there is a definite offer and an absolute acceptance made by parties who are capable of giving consent. At the same time, the law also protects parties against unfair situations by declaring contract voidable if consent was obtained through mistake, fraud, violence, intimidation, or undue influence. Understanding these provisions help us see that the law does not only enforce agreement but also ensures fairness and justice in contractual relationships. With this, we now have a clearer picture of how consent serves as the heart of every valid contract.